Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. It is Shannon with Bling Your Things, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make these rhinestone license plate frames that we made in our most recent in-person class. If you ordered one of our kits, you are going to receive 2 license plate frames, 2 rhinestone shaker trays with 10 makeup applicators, your rhinestone pickup tool. You are going to need to sharpen this prior to use, as well as 2 packs of our rhinestones in the color crystal. You're going to receive the size SS10 as well as the size SS20. The other items that you're going to need some rubbing alcohol to clean your plate prior to rhinestoning. You're going to need some sandpaper. I'm using 120 grit. You can use a stronger grit. If you don't have sandpaper, you could also use a nail file, which you probably already have in your home. Then to apply the rhinestones, we're going to use Bob Smith 30-minute 2-part epoxy. You can find this on Amazon, and I will post links to all of the products in the description below. This is a really fun and easy project, even if you're new to rhinestoning. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first step that we are going to do is we're going to go ahead and sand down the whole plate. And again, if you don't have sandpaper and you just have a nail file, just go ahead and use that. Just make sure that you sand the whole plate, get the corners pretty good. Up at the top where you're going to put the screws back in and attach it to the car, you don't have to sand that piece so that it keeps that finished look, because you're not going to rhinestone over that part anyway. Then just complete the sanding around the whole thing. Nothing crazy. You're just trying to take off that top layer of finish, kind of like the shine. The sanding doesn't have to be very deep, just enough to kind of roughen up the surface. Now that we have the sanding done, we're going to go ahead and clean off that dust and any oil that got on it from our hands with rubbing alcohol. I'm just going to use a paper towel, put a little bit of rubbing alcohol on it, and then I'm going to go ahead and wipe down the whole plate. Then you can see from the paper towel, it is going to be a bit dirty, which that's all the stuff that you removed off of the top of the license plate. Then step 3, we're going to go ahead and mix up our Bob Smith 30-minute 2-part epoxy. This is a 1-to-1 mixture, meaning that both parts that you use of the resin and the hardener should be equal. Because we are doing the license plate, I only use about a pea-size amount of each one, and then I mix those together. Then you're going to want to mix the 2 parts together for approximately 45 to 60 seconds to make sure that they are thoroughly mixed. I'm just using a toothpick to mix mine. You will use the makeup applicators that came in your kit to mix this up. As you're mixing it, it's going to kind of flatten out, kind of go from the edges and try to push everything back to the center, like all in a pile, so that it's easier for you to make sure that it's thoroughly mixed. Now we're going to kind of set it off to the side and go ahead and get our rhinestones ready. We're going to use our 2 shaker trays and we're going to pour our rhinestones in them. After you've poured them in, just give the trays a couple little shakes, and that will help flip the rhinestones so that they are facing straight up, making it easier for you to pick them up with your wax tip rhinestone pickup tool. Then we're going to go ahead and grab the 2-part epoxy that we mixed up. You're going to use your makeup applicator or your toothpick, and you're going to push it all again into a pile, and then go ahead and pick up a little bit of it, and you will place it onto the license plate. I recommend starting in a corner so that you're able to keep your lines straight as you make your design. And it might seem counterintuitive, but you really don't need a whole lot of the 2-part epoxy. You just want a very thin layer so that it completely covers the surface. You don't want any bare spots, but you want just enough so that it's covered evenly. It is somewhat self-leveling, so as you apply it, don't worry about if there's any ridges in it. It will eventually kind of even itself out. but you don't want any big piles in it. In the beginning, it is very, very liquid, and your rhinestones may move around after you first start applying them, but as it starts to dry and cure, the amount of time or movement that you're going to have in that is less and less. And since you're just starting out, I only recommend doing about a 2 to 3 inch section so that you can place the rhinestones on top of that before it completely cures. Then we can go ahead and start placing our rhinestones. The ones that I'm going to show you in the example, I'm doing a cushion fill pattern, which means I'm using both sizes and I'm going to alternate them back and forth, meaning that I'm going to put the SS10s in between the SS20s. So it'll be an SS20, an SS10, an SS20, an SS10, and it will alternate like that back and forth through every row. And then a little tip to make sure that your lines are going to line up as you come around this completely. Make sure that you start that first row right at the edge so that it's going to go straight up horizontally as well as straight vertically. Then let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing better. So as you can see, I'm placing one SS20 and then one SS10, and then that pattern is alternating back and forth for each row, whether it's the vertical row or the horizontal row. So then after you get your pattern started, you can either alternate back and forth between the stone sizes, or you can in each row place all of the SS20s and then go back and place the SS10s, or vice versa. I do recommend, especially in the beginning while the epoxy is still very liquid, the stones will move around a lot. Make sure that you go back and double check that none of them have moved and that you're keeping your line straight. So just go back and make adjustments. Take your time a little bit, especially as you get kind of this first part of it started, so that you can make sure that this base section that you started keeps your pattern straight and that your lines are straight. You can use a ruler if you'd like to kind of go back and just make sure that that your lines are straight by using the straight edge. I also recommend placing your trays kind of close to your work area. This will help lessen the time that it takes to go back and forth between picking up each rhinestone. Then just keep working the pattern all the way down this section of the frame, and then mix new epoxy as needed. If you go to use the epoxy and it's very sticky, I wouldn't recommend using that batch and mixing up a new batch because you're not going to have much work time left. It is a 30-minute epoxy, which means 30 minutes until it's hard. So you're probably going to have about 20 minutes of work time on each batch of epoxy that you've mixed up. Then when you get down to the edge, do the same thing, mix up a new batch of epoxy, go ahead and apply a very thin layer, spread it out on the frame, and then apply your rhinestones. And then as you get to the edges, your lines and your pattern should line up so that you only, as you go up the edge, you're only doing 2 rows of rhinestones. You could add more here, but they have the potential to overlap. And if they're overlapping the edge of the frame, they have the potential to come loose from the frame itself. So I only recommend doing 2 rows on the sides here. And again, as you're working, just always go back and double check your work. Make sure that your rhinestones aren't sliding around, they didn't slide out of place, and make adjustments as needed to push them back if needed to keep your row straight. Then after you've worked one side all the way up to the top, I recommend going over to the other side and doing the same on that side as well. And then again, you're just going to continue with the same pattern, doing 2 rows all the way up to the top of this side. Then when you get to the top, you're going to connect the 2 sides together. And then you'll go ahead and finish out that top row Just remember that as you're working towards the holes where the screws are going to go in and connect to your vehicle, don't rhinestone over that area. You need to be able so that your rhinestones will, or your screws will screw in flat when you put it on your car. Then there are the two caps that I don't show in the video. You can rhinestone those as well. It's probably easier though to get them on and off if you don't rhinestone them, but you can if you want them to like blend in and be the same design on the back of your vehicle. And then congratulations, you are finished completing your first rhinestone license plate frame. I will post links to all the products in the description below. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you haven't already, I'd love it if you could give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We also host live tutorials every week on Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also find additional tips and tricks on our website, blingyourthings.com, and in our Facebook group. My name is Shannon, and until next time, I hope you have a great week.